Good afternoon, everyone. Just checking in before the start of Module 2. Hope everybody had a good first week of the class. And again, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. Each of the modules are listed in the syllabus along with the due dates. Did receive some messages about when these modules are opening and closing. Please remember each module does end Sunday at 11:59, and the new module will open Monday morning at 8 a.m. But again, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or need anything, please feel free to reach out. Also, one other thing that I wanted to review with everyone in the discussions moving forward with the class, please make sure that you make your initial post and then respond to two of your classmates. Again, if you have any questions, just please let me know, and I hope you all enjoy the content moving forward in studying about resort management. I want to move on to Chapter 2 and talk more about the environment of a resort, but first want to make one thing clear when we're talking about resort management in this course. Seems to be some mixing or conflating the terms of a hotel versus a resort. When we're talking about resort management, we want to make sure that we're not talking about hotels. Here in the United States, some really good examples of hotels are your Courtyard by Marriott, your Hyatt Places, Red Roof Inns, things like that. We like to say in the industry, things that just provide a head and a bed. And these hotels serve a great function. You'll see a lot of them off of major highways, in a lot of tourist areas for customers looking for a value. And again, I want to stress that these hotels serve a massive purpose in the hospitality industry. They can be very profitable if located in the right place. I used to be a general manager of a Courtyard by Marriott myself, so again, I want to stress that these hotels are very, very important. However, when we're talking about in the context of a resort management, they're not really classified as resorts. And throughout this course, we will go into more what qualifies as a resort, whether it's food and beverage amenities, recreation opportunities for guests. One rule of thumb that I like to use when talking about a resort is what can a guest do if they were to spend a day at the location? Is there enough things to keep them occupied, whether it be restaurants, movies, bars, clubs, pools, ski slopes, things of that nature, a beach, to keep them occupied? That's really a big differentiator when talking about a hotel versus a resort. So as we move forward, just please make sure that we are keeping that mindset of we are talking about destination resorts and managing those resorts. So on to Chapter 2. There are a couple of things when talking about resort management that we want to keep in mind right off the bat, that these institutions and locations are businesses, so making a profit obviously is going to be a driver. There are a couple of resorts that I'm aware of that are charity or nonprofit. Make-A-Wish is one of those that I know of personally that do have some resorts. Some hospitals may have hotels or resorts where they're not looking to make a profit, but in the overall scope of the hospitality industry, making a profit is going to be something that's extremely important to some of these resorts. They can be multi-million and in some cases $100 million investments when you're talking about land, construction costs, and operating costs. So a return on investment is going to be a huge priority to the management of these resorts. You want to develop an attractive and competitive product. We see all throughout the United States and the world, both pre-pandemic and during the pandemic, a lot of resorts that are going through natural life cycles. You're seeing a lot of niche resorts pop up, some different type of sustainable tourism ideas, and some of your older resorts, as far as like all-inclusive, some of your Las Vegas resorts, even some of your Disney resorts, your ski resorts are maturing in their life cycle in the element of resort management. So, you want to make sure that you're developing an attractive and competitive product when you're talking about planning and operating a resort. Thirdly, we want to make sure that you're establishing a sustainable product. We've seen over the last 2 years what can happen when tourism is brought to a screeching halt due to a worldwide pandemic or, life event, things of such nature as maybe conflict in certain parts of the world or United States may keep people away from traveling to that area and things of that nature. But under normal circumstances, you want to make sure that you're establishing a sustainable product that will pay dividends off in the future. So keeping those things in mind, making a profit, developing an attractive and competitive product, and establishing a sustainable product are things that we want to keep in mind when we're talking about planning and then executing the operation of a resort in a destination. Moving along in the chapter, the author does cover a little bit about administrative and functions of a resort. I'm going to replace functions with operations. So when you're talking about administration, you're talking about human resources, office and clerical, scheduling, things of that nature. You have an administrative structure, either a general manager, an assistant general manager, maybe a director of rooms or food and beverage, people that are in an administrative role in the resort. And then when you're talking about functions or operations, you're talking about your food and beverage, your housekeeping, your ground maintenance, your recreation, things of that nature, in order to provide the product or service to the paying customer. So if we're talking about administration, you're talking about behind the scenes for the most part, clerical, office, and technical. And when you're talking about functions, or as I like to call them, operations, you're talking about your front line delivering the actual service or product to the guests that are staying at the resort. On top of that, we want to talk about value and revenue management. You want to make sure that your guests that are staying at your resort are understanding the perceived value. As I mentioned in our last lecture, you're going to hear me reference Walt Disney World and the Disney resorts a lot. They give a very, very good understanding of value and revenue management with their hotels. They want to make sure that each market segmentation understands the difference between their market segments. They do, no pun intended, have value resorts, moderate resorts, deluxe resorts, and vacation club resorts. And as I mentioned, do a very good job of marketing the differences between those resort levels to potential and returning guests. So you want to make sure that your guests understand the value that they're getting out of the resort, and then the revenue management portion of that will come on the back end. Another good example that I like to use with value in resort management is Snowmass out in Colorado, which is known as the Disney of the Rockies. They are doing a fantastic job. If you've never heard of Snowmass, Google and go to their webpage. They do a fantastic job of marketing themselves as the upper echelon of ski resorts in the Rockies. And I think it's a great example of a resort doing a great job at understanding which market segment they fall in and selling the value of paying a premium to their clientele. All-inclusive resorts in the Caribbean do a great job of selling the value of potential clients to things like drinks packages, food and beverage, all being included in a lot of cases, alcohol. So a guest may understand that they won't be paying extra for food and beverage and drinks and things like that, are all part of the value of the resort that it adds to the customer's mind. So, excuse me, a little bit of a runny nose this morning. Demand and lifestyle segmentation is another thing to keep in mind when talking about resort and resort management. Is there a demand for a product? Would you put a $100 million resort in an area that's not well developed or not near a national park or a landmark or a theme park or a beach? Why would you put that there? You do see some examples, especially around the United States, of very large convention resorts, obviously near convention centers, but there's not much else there. Do those resorts make money? Is there a need for those resorts? Lifestyle segmentation is another thing. As I mentioned earlier in the lecture, you are starting to see more and more niche markets pop up in the hospitality and tourism corridor. Is a resort designed mainly to cater towards younger people? Are they designed to cater more towards retirees, international guests, domestic guests? All of those things. So lifestyle segmentation is one of those areas that we're going to be taking a look at a lot as we talk about this course. One of the biggest ones that I noticed myself being in the industry is a resort family oriented versus non-family oriented, which is both okay. You see that a lot in the Dominican Republic, where we have the Nickelodeon Resort, which is obviously catered towards families and children. And then you have other resorts located in the Dominican Republic and throughout the Caribbean that are marketed towards younger people, all inclusive alcohol, singles, even. So, market segmentation and lifestyle segmentation go hand in hand as far as how a resort is marketing itself. Another factor in resort management in Chapter 2 that they really take a deep dive is environmental scanning. Again, how is your competition? Is it a saturated market? Is there market demand for either one or obviously another resort? Is there enough capacity? Seeing the post-COVID world develop into what it looks like it's going to for the hospitality industry, are there markets that are going to be oversaturated? Is there enough supply and demand? Is there too much supply, or is there not enough demand? All of those things are going to fall into environmental scanning. And then there's the actual environment. You see a lot of World Heritage sites around the world where tourism is welcome, but obviously impacting the environment in a negative way. So they're starting to limit the amount of tourism that are allowed, or tourists that are allowed in the area and are allowed to stay in the area, and thus inhibiting further development, clearing of land, beaches, things like that. So environmental scanning is going to be a critical part of owning and operating a resort or seeing if another resort may be feasible. Finally, the last part of Chapter 2 goes into productivity, robustness, and something that I've mentioned a number of times in the lecture, niche creation. You want to make sure that productivity stays high if you want to maintain a healthy return on investment. You want people to come visit your resort, use the resort, word of mouth, online reviews, things of that nature. Robustness. You're seeing a lot of creative thinking now during COVID-19 and the pandemic. You see a lot of these destination resorts offering huge discounts just to keep certain part of the resorts full, to keep guests coming in there. I've seen a lot on the operator side, a lot of creative thinking of actually shutting down portions of the resort so that way you do not have to maintain operational costs, but yet still can have certain parts of the resorts open for your guests. So robustness during good economic times and bad economic times, for whatever reason, is going to be critical when talking about resort management. And then last but not least, niche creation. Again, mentioned it a couple of times in the lecture, but you're starting to see that more and more in the hospitality and tourism industry of not only catering to the mass populations, but also really, really targeting certain niche markets within the traveling public or the tourism public to make sure that they come and visit your resort for whatever reason those may be. There are two absolutely excellent case studies at the end of Chapter 2, the Butlins Holiday Resorts in the United Kingdom and the Gold Coast in Australia, mainly known for its surfing. I am not a surfer, but if we have any surfers in the class, maybe you can tell us about some of your experiences. Also in this module, I've included a couple of videos that I think will really help supplement this lecture. One is a TED Talk, and then the other is a YouTube video about the Gold Coast in Australia. I mentioned in the notes of the YouTube video, please forgive the content creator's choice of music for that YouTube video. It is very loud and blaring instrumental music, so you may want to turn down the volume a little bit, but please watch those videos, and in the discussions use this of course lecture and those supplemental materials to answer those questions. I look forward to reading those discussions and participating with you. Please remember there is a quiz at the end of each module just to make sure that we are doing the readings and comprehending those readings. And again, please reach out to me if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, and I hope you enjoy Module 2. Thank you so much.